In today's video, you'll learn how to create a front-end form using Bricksforge Pro Forms that will allow you to update a post along with its ACF meta fields right from the front end. If that's something that interests you, we'll jump right into it. But before we go into it, please let me know in the comments, do you use Bricksforge Pro Forms, or which form plugin do you prefer? So now let's jump right into the example. Here's a recipe post I created using Bricks and ACF Pro. Here we have the title field, we have a number field for the rating, we have a text area field, repeater field, a featured image, and so on. This was inspired by allrecipe.com. That's where I just got the inspiration from. And in this tutorial, we'll be showing you how you can update this post using a Bricksforge Pro Forms right on the front end. Before I go into showing you how to create the form, there are some things that you need to know. The first thing is that this is done pre-version 3.0, so there are some things that might change, and I'll cover those updates in a new video. The other thing you need to note is that some fields do not work currently, but like I said, in version 3.0, I believe they will be fixed, so we'll do another video to cover those fields. Some of those fields are fields that relate to an array, such as your relationship fields. Those cannot be updated currently on the front end using Bricksforge Pro Forms, but I believe in 3.0, you'll be able to do that. There are other issues with repeater fields, so I will explain that as we go along. So now let's jump back into it. So here we are back on the page. Let's see the form in action. So I'll go ahead and click on Edit to take me to the Edit page. Then within this Edit page, you can see everything is already populated. We have the post title, we have the featured image, and we have some different fields. So let's say I want to change something like the rating to, rather than 4.5, I want it to be 5. And I want the prep time to be 12 minutes. And let's say I want to change one of the ingredients to, rather than flour, I'll say I want to put pasta or something, just something weird. Yeah, so let's go ahead and press submit. See, it has submitted successfully and it gets refreshed. And you can see we get our changes. The rating has changed to 5.0. We've changed one of the repeater field to pasta and so on. So everything has changed. And we can also go ahead and see this page on the front end. So let me go ahead and pull up the page. So I'll go to the post type and I'm looking for the classic waffles. So classic waffles. Let me open it in a new tab. So let's go ahead and edit the back end. So on the back end, you can see this is the whole post. The rating has changed to 5.0. We've changed the prep time to 12, and we've updated the ingredients. And if we go ahead and view it on the front end, so let's go ahead and just view this page on the front end. We'll also see those changes. So the rating now is 5 stars. And the repeater, we have our pasta. And everything changes. So we can change everything from the front end form, and it updates the post right in the back end, and everything just works. Now that we've seen the form in action, let me go ahead and show you the ACF fields that I created on the back end. Then we'll go ahead and see how to create the form. So let's jump back in. So here we are on the back end. Under ACF and then post types, I created a post type called recipes. And then under the field groups, I created a field group called recipe meta. Let's go ahead and edit it. And all we can see here are a few fields like the text area field for the description. We have a number field for the rating. We have a relationship field for the recipe author, a WYSIWYG field for the extra description. And this is how we have several different fields, including a repeater field. So I'm just going to leave all of these open and we'll create a form. So let me go ahead and create a page, and then we'll create a form into that page. I'm using Command UI here to make my life easier. So I'll just press C to open create, and I want to create a page. So I'll just say page. So now we are in this page. Now let me call it edit recipe on the front end. Okay, I'll publish that, publish it. Then we'll go ahead and edit it. So here we are in the Bricks edit page. To make everything easier, I'll open up the ACF field group on a separate tab so we can quickly switch between them. So I'll use Command UI and then I'll just say ACF field groups, Control Enter to open a new tab, Escape, Control Tab. I'm now here, so I'll open up recipe meta. So all we're just going to do is we create corresponding fields from our Bricksforge Pro form that corresponds to the first to the post default fields and as well as the ACF meta fields. So now we have this open. Let me come back. So I'll first of all create a section, and within this section, I'll drop in the Pro form. So click on the plus icon to add an element, and I'll search for Pro form. Then I'll just click on it. So we've added our Pro forms into a section. It comes with some default fields like the text field, the email field, the text area field. But since we're just going to be updating a post, we don't need all of these fields. So I'll go ahead and delete them first. We'll put them in later. So delete every field. So we're starting from scratch with just a blank canvas. So we have our Pro forms. Now, let me go ahead and save it. And we'll start adding the fields. The first thing we need is the post title. Then we may need something for the featured image and probably something for the taxonomy, which was called the mail type. So those are the key bits because we're not working with the post editor, so we don't need anything for the post editor field. The other things we need are the ACF meta fields. So now let's go ahead and start adding in all of those fields. So for the Bricksforge Pro Form fields, if you click on the plus icon again and you go all the way down to the bottom, you would notice some of the Bricksforge fields, which is under Bricksforge Forms. These are all of the fields you can use as inputs to the Bricksforge Pro Forms. So let's say I want a text field for my post title. Then I want another field for my featured image. So that will be a file field. Then I want something for the rating field. So that will be a number field. Okay. I may want a field to be able to update my taxonomy, which is called mail type. So I'll look for a select field. So let's look for the select. So now we have all of these fields. The rest are mostly going to be the ACF fields. So let me come over here. The first one is the description. That's a text area field. So let me just go ahead and just keep searching. So say text area. Then we've already added the rating. We want one for the recipe author. Like I said, relationship fields currently don't work well in this version, so we'll skip that. Then we want something for the extra description. We can also skip that because this post doesn't really have an extra description. So I'll add all the other fields. So the next one is for the timing. This is a group field, and within the group, we have 4 fields, which are just number fields. So let me go ahead and add in 4 number fields. So number 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is that. Then for the ingredients, since these are both repeater fields, I will only add 1. Then I will explain something later. So add a repeater field for my ingredients. I'll search for repeater. And that's it there. Okay. I'll skip these. Then the nutritional fact, these are also just number fields. So there are 4 of them. So add 4 number fields again. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. And like I said, it doesn't work well with arrays. So a gallery field is also an array because it adds multiple elements together. So we'll skip that as well. Once the version 3 is released, we'll come up with an updated video which should solve some of these problems. So now we have these fields that we can work with. I like to change the label colors. So I already created a class name, which I believe I called DJ Form. Yes, just to make it bolder. All I did was just change the field for the label typography to be something that is bigger and bolder. That's all. So now that we have these forms, let's go ahead and start labeling them. So first I'll just label all of these fields so that we know what we're working with. So I'll start with the first one. I'll label it the recipe title. Then the next one is the thumbnail. We have the rating field, and I'll go ahead and name the rest and we'll continue from there. I've finished adding the labels to all the fields, so we can continue from here. So the next thing we need to do now is we're trying to update an already existing post. The only way we can edit the post is if we know the ID of that post. If we're creating a freshly new post, then we automatically generate an ID. But because this is a post that's already created, we need to be able to pull in that ID. The way we do that is through a URL parameter. So we add a URL parameter to the post, and then we pull it into the form using a hidden field. So I'll go ahead and I'll add a hidden field. And let me add it in. I've clicked on it. It's at the bottom. So let's drag that up to the top. And this will be called the recipe ID. Okay. So now we have all our fields. Let's start pulling in all of those fields into the form. So we'll come to the recipe ID first. Just since this is a hidden field, first I'll use a basic text field to make sure that everything is working. So I'll say basic text. Just put that somewhere at the beginning. And let's test it out. So I'll click on the dynamic data tag. And like I said, we're trying to use the URL parameter to be able to add the ID into the form. So I'll say URL parameter. And we get this. So we'll add the URL parameter. The way it works is you write URL parameter with a colon, and we'll put the key of the parameter we're trying to get. In this case, I'll just give the key as ID. So let's click this. Come before the closing tag, I'll put the colon and I'll write ID. Now let's see how this works. I'll save this and just go ahead and give this column, make it a column, save it. Okay, now let's see it on the front end. So I'll go to the front end. Right now, nothing is showing. But when I come up to the top, just after all of these text, you see this question mark. I'll now replace it with ID equal to, let's say, 627. And you see, it's just basically whatever ID I put here is what shows up here. So if I say 633, that ID shows up here. So now we're going to use this ID to get our post ID, and we can now use that to manipulate the rest of the form. So let me go ahead and look for the ID of the post that we're going to edit in this case. So I'll come over to my recipes. Then let me just open one of the recipes. So in this case, we're trying to edit the classic waffles. If you look at the very bottom of your page, or when you go ahead and edit it, look in the address bar, you see the ID there. It's called post equal to, and then it gives you the ID. So in this case, the ID is 627. So let me just put that as the ID we'll be working with in this case. So I'll say 627. And then save. Okay, so now this is what we're going to be working with to make sure that everything is being pulled in correctly, because it's going to be a two-step process. First, we need to pull in the data into the form. Then we can now update that data. We don't just want to start updating random data. We want to be able to first pull in the correct data that already exists before we edit the data. we're just going to be using this as the control value. Okay. So now in our form, the first thing we've gotten it is the ID. So we're just going to copy this URL parameter because that's what is giving us the post ID. So come to the field, open it up, and I'll place that as the value. Just URL underscore parameter column ID. And I also want to give this custom ID a name so that it's easy for us when we are updating the form actions. So this custom ID, I'll use the label I've used here. One thing that you should take caution about is try avoid writing post ID or post title because those tags are reserved and then they can mess up your entire work. So make sure you avoid using the term post title or post ID. So in this case, I'll just use recipe dash ID. Okay. For the next one is the recipe title. So I'll call it recipe dash title. And for the label, I'll call it recipe title. The value, this time we're trying to get the title from that ID. Thankfully, with Bricksforge, once you have your Pro Forms active and your dynamic tags from Bricksforge active, you can do this. Come to the dynamic tags, go all the way to the bottom. You'd see the one from the Bricksforge. So that's Bricksforge. And we're trying to get the post fields. So you see post title, and then add the post ID after. So click on that. The post ID is the URL parameter. So just come before the closing curly brace, put the colon, and then paste it. So that is brf underscore post underscore title colon, open the curly brace, URL underscore parameter colon ID, then close the curly brace twice. We get that. Let's go ahead and see if it's working. So I'll save these. And we'll come back to the front end and refresh. See, Classic Waffles is working. So that is the recipe title. So the first one is done. And that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the fields. Just using the Bricksforge dynamic data. Before we continue, let me go ahead and show you how you can activate these dynamic tags that come from Bricksforge. So let me just quickly use the core framework and write Bricksforge. That means you have to go under the WP dashboard, Bricks, and then Bricksforge. Let me open a new tab. So within this Bricksforge, what you need to do now is come under the extensions, and we need to activate dynamic data tags. That's the only way we can use those dynamic data tags in Bricks. The other things we need is that Pro Form, but I believe you already added it. So that under Elements, you have your Pro Forms, you can activate it. Then within the settings, you can go ahead and activate tongue style and you set it up so they can get some capture and protect yourself from spam. So let's close this. So now we have that. Let's go back to our form and we'll continue. So we have our recipe ID, recipe title. The next thing is the thumbnail. So we come over here and then I'll write recipe dash thumb. This is the recipe thumb nail, and the value will also pull the data. So this time is the thumbnail. Let's go down to the bottom and we'll look for post thumbnail URL. Come just before the end of the curly brace, colon, and then we paste that URL parameter. So URL parameter ID. Save these. And if you want to preview it on the front end, you may want to use a separate field. So something like an image widget. So this is the image element. Within that, I can now go ahead and add in that post thumbnail with the URL parameter. So colon URL parameter. Let's save this and we'll go ahead and see if it's working. So come back to the front end, refresh. So we have our thumbnail that's showing. We have our post title and we have our hidden ID. So everything is looking good. So let's come back. We'll continue with that. So with the rating field, we'll go ahead and put in a number. So that is rating for the ID. And I'll call it a rating as well. Rating, the value. This time, these are now ACF fields. So if you go to that dynamic tags, you see a different one at the bottom called the ACF fields. So that's ACF fields, use the same thing. So ACF field, this time we now have to put colon. What is the field name? The field name is what we get when we're editing the field group. And in this case, if you go to the top, see the field name is called rating. So I'll copy that and put that rating, then colon again. And this time we want the URL parameter. And at the end, we want to put the column ID. Save it. And let's see if it's working. So come to the front end, refresh. And you see that's our rating. So we can go ahead and do that for the rest of the fields. So I might speed it up. Let's skip this for now. We'll come back to it. Let's just add the other easy fields. So this one is the description. So I'll just write description. Description. The value is going to be the ACF. Let's go to the bottom. That's the ACF field from Bricksforge. Then the field name is colon. I believe it's called description or DSCR. Okay. And then colon again. Put the URL parameter. And at the end, put the column ID. Okay. Save. Prep time. Now this is slightly different. So I'll call it prep -time for the custom ID. For the label, I'll call it prep time. And for the value, it is slightly different. It's still an ACF field. So I'll start with the ACF. Search for the ACF from Bricksforge. Then put the column and we'll put the field label. That's where we have to now come back to the group field. Because it is a group field, we have to now put the group name, which is called timing, underscore, then we put the name of the actual field. So that is timing underscore prep underscore time. So copy that, come back. So I'll start with that. So that is timing underscore prep underscore time, then colon. We now have to put the ID of the post, which is the URL parameter. Then go to the end, column ID. Okay, so save this. And that's what we do for the rest of the fields. Then I'll come back and we'll continue with the mail type and the ingredients. Let's go ahead and see if it worked. So come back to the front end, refresh. And we get description. We get the prep time, the cooking time, the additional time. I believe there's none added to that post. Let's see. The additional time, there's nothing there. That's why. Let me go ahead and just put 1. Go ahead and save it. Then I'll go ahead and refresh to make sure everything is working in order. Yes, we have 1. So it's all pulling in the data correctly. So now let me go ahead and add the other fields. So for the calories, let's go back. And this time I'll call it calories. The label will be calories. The value will be similar. But this time, let me go ahead and see. Edit the field group. This time it's called, the label is called nutrition facts. Let me copy that. So nutrition underscore facts. Then it will be underscore the value, which is called calories. So come back. So rather than timing, it's called nutrition underscore facts. And rather than prep underscore time, it was called calories. Go ahead and copy all of that. Copy. Save it. Make sure it is working before we continue, because I'm just going to be duplicating it for the rest of the post. So yeah, the calories is in. The next field is the fat, carbs, and then protein. And we'll preview on the front end. That's always good to preview so that you know that it worked before you continue. So we have all of our fields being pulled in correctly. Servings, the description. So the two things left are the meal type and we have the repeater field. So let's continue. So I'll start with the repeater field. So under ingredients, I'll call it the name of the repeater field, which was ingredients as well. Ingredients. The label will be ingredients. Okay. Then what you now come to is the data. So under data, you have to choose the data source. In this case, it's an ACF repeater. Then the post ID is the URL parameter. So I'll search for URL parameter and is the ID. Okay. Then the field name is the name of the repeater. So let's come back to the field groups. And the repeater field was the ingredients. So that's here. Let's copy the name of the repeater. Come back to the field. So we've made the connection between the repeater and the ACF field. Okay, so you can save that. Then what we need to do now is to connect the actual subfields. So for that one, we'll go over to this field that is inside the repeater. So if you have, let's say your repeater has multiple fields, like multiple text fields. In this case, it's just one field that's there for ingredients. Let me close all of these other fields. So it's easy to find. Okay, so ingredients, you notice we only have one field, which is called ingredient without an S. If you add more fields, then you add more like text field, text area field, and other fields. The only limitation I've found currently, and I think they are working on it, is that if you have an image field in there, it seems to not work. So every other kind of field will work, like text area. But the moment you have an image field in your repeater, it doesn't work anymore. I'm not sure what the problem is, but I think in version 3.0, all will be well. So I'll come back. This is my ingredient. So let's go into the ingredient. And here, this is the thing you have to remember for repeater fields. The custom ID must replicate the name of the repeater sub-item. In this case, it's called ingredient without an S. So that means this subfield name here must be the same name as the custom ID. Then I can now call this ingredient. And that's it. You don't need to put any value. This custom ID will auto-populate the value. Let's save it and see if it's working. So come back to the front end, refresh, and let's go to our repeater. And see, our repeater is working. You can go ahead and remove the label. If you don't want, you can hide the label. Save it. Then if you refresh, you see we get the ingredients, which is the group label, but we don't get any of the individual labels. And although you cannot see it clearly because I didn't style it well, but there's a minus and a plus icon here, which will help you to add more fields. If you want to add more while you are updating the post, you can add more fields, you can remove fields and things like that. So we have these. So all of these are working. The last thing is the select field for the meal type. So let's go back. I'll come to the meal type and I'll call it meal-type. The label, I'll call it meal type. So the two things we need to do here is this is going to be getting all of the taxonomy terms from my meal type. So we have to now query to show all the mail types before we select the actual mail type that we want for that post. So you come to the option, you click on Use Query Loop. Then the query, I'll choose the infinity sign, choose the type to be the taxonomy terms, so terms. Then I have to select my taxonomy, which I called mail type. So let's search for mail. Okay, that's it, mail type. Okay. Then we can do order by or all those kind of things. I don't really need those for now, so I'll just leave that. So that will populate all of the mail types. So I've added the query. The next thing we need to do is actually show what exactly is the label and what is the value. So in this case, what you need to know is that the value has to be the name of the term. So both the label and the value have to be the name of the term. That's how it works pre-version 3.0. I don't know how it's going to work in the version 3.0 and above. I will update you if there's any changes, but pre-version 3.0, the label and the value have to be the term name. So all you have to do is just search for term name, and term name. Okay, save those. Now it should work. If you refresh, you can see the meal type. We have breakfast and brunch. We have dinner. We have lunch. But for now, we're just pulling all of the meal types that we have. But we want to now select the actual one for that post. Currently, you probably have to create your own dynamic tag. But fortunately, I have dynamic shortcodes here. So I'll be using dynamic shortcodes to pull in the right value, because Bricksforge currently doesn't have a native way to pull in a single data from an array into the field. I believe they said in the version 3.0, they're going to have what they call the conditionally selected field. So you can now do conditionally selected and to select it based on the current post, but it doesn't exist currently. But fortunately, we have dynamic shortcodes here, and that's what I'll be using. So with dynamic shortcodes, I'm going to try to pull in the term name from the current post. So what I'm going to do is say, I want the term colon name. Then I have to determine where the name is actually coming from. It's coming from the current post. So I'll put at ID equal to, then I'll open and close the curly brace again, post colon terms, double pipe symbol 0, because I only want the first term, because in this case, I'm only selecting one term per post. Okay, and then I have to now define some other things. So at the taxonomy is equal to, it's called mail-type, and the ID is equal to the URL parameter. In the case of dynamic shortcodes, it's called param-get column ID. So I believe it's working now. Let's go ahead and see, save it. Let me go to the front end, refresh. I don't know if it's working. Let's go ahead and just take this into a text field and we'll know if it's working or not. I may have made some errors. Save. And let's go ahead and see, refresh. Okay, so it's working. So it's getting breakfast and brunch. Let's go ahead and see the post. It's the classic waffle, which is a breakfast food. So that is breakfast and brunch. So it's working. Let's just say we want to change it to a dinner meal, update. And we'll come to the front end, refresh. We get the dinner and it updates to dinner. So it is working. So we have all of our fields. This is now the first step done. The next step in the process is actually connecting these fields that we have created now to the post submit action, so that when somebody updates the post, it updates the fields on successful submission. So let's go ahead and see how it is. For post submission, we actually have to have a submit button. So let's go ahead and add element, the submit button at the end. Let me go ahead and drop it to the end of the form. and that is our submit button. Then we'll come to the Pro form, and this way we have to start linking everything together. So on the Pro form, we come under Actions, and let me say I don't want email. The first action we need is the update post, and because we're using ACF, we need the update post meta. So those are the two fields we need: update post and update post meta. So we'll start with the update post, and we only want the logged in users to be able to access it for security reasons. You don't want anybody to just guest post and start posting rubbish. You want people who are actually logged in to be able to update posts. But that's all totally up to you. So now for the post ID, all you have to do then is just start linking all of the form fields into the current field. So for the post ID, we can come to the FX and I'll choose the recipe ID. That's our post ID. The post title, let's choose the FX again and the recipe title. The next one is the post content. In my example, we don't have any content. If we did, we will add that field here, followed by the post status. I'm just going to say publish, Publish. Okay, we don't have excerpt. We don't need the date. The thumbnail is our thumb, so I'll choose the FX and we'll look for the thumbnail field, which is called recipe thumb. Okay. I think something is wrong here. Let me go ahead and refresh the page. And we'll go back to our fields and make sure that the fields have the right IDs. Okay, recipe thumb. Okay, so go to the Pro form and go back to the update post. And let's see if it's correct now. FX. Then recipe thumb. Okay, now it's better. Don't know what happened the other time. So save. Okay, so the last one is the taxonomy. Add item. The taxonomy slug is called meal type, which we can find when we go to the post. Let's go to the meal type. If you click on it to edit it, you see the slug here is called taxonomy equal to meal dash type. So we can just go ahead and copy that and come back to our form, paste it here. That's the slug. And the term we want to add is, now you choose that FX and we look for the meal type. Okay, so we have those ones connected. Those are our regular posts. Now I want to update post meta for any ACF field. So I'll come to the update post meta. I'll choose the source to be ACF. Then I'll start adding our post meta. So add the post ID is our form field again. So recipe ID. Then allow olive logged in. Okay. Then we'll start the post meta name. That is the name of your ACF field. So I'll come back to the field groups. The first one is the description. So I'll start with the description, come to the form, paste it there. And the value is the value from our form. So this is the name from the ACF, the value from the form. So choose the FX and is the description we're looking for. So description, you can leave it as default. It will default to replace value, or you can select it directly. So I'll choose that. That's for the first form. Let me just duplicate it because everything is going to be literally the same. The ID is going to be the same. Only thing that's changing is the value and the post meta value. So in this one is going to be the rating, and the post meta value for that is called rating as well. Okay. Other things remain the same. Duplicate. The next one is the prep time. So we'll change this to timing underscore prep underscore time. And the value is fx, and we choose our prep time. Every direction remains the same. Okay, let me duplicate it. What else do we need? Let's go ahead and do the other ones. So the calories and the other ones. So choose this again. And this time is going to be called nutrition facts. Let's just go back to the field. Make sure we're getting it right. It's called nutrition facts. Paste that in, underscore, and the first one is calories. So calories, fx, calories, and the others will just follow suit. So we've updated the main fields. The last thing we're updating is the repeater field. So I'll click on the duplicate, then the ID remains the same. Allow logged in, yes. Now what you have to add here is repeater field, yes. Then we have to change these values. The repeater action, you have to choose that it is updating the rows pro form repeater. Okay, because this we are updating an existing post. If you are creating the post, then you use the add rows, but now we're updating the post, so just use the update rows. Then the post meta name is the name from the post. In this case, it was called ingredients with an S. Copy that for the repeater. Paste that in, and then the repeater ID. So that's the pro forms repeater ID. Click on the FX, and we have to look for the repeater, which is called ingredients. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead and you can save it. You can go ahead and add your spam protection if you've set up any of those tongue style or H capture or whatever. But yeah, that's the basic thing we need to do when we are updating our post. If we can now come to the front end, refresh, and we see our post is pulled in correctly. We can do anything. So let's say we want the fat to be 21, and let's just go in order. So let's say this is 20 for the calories, 21 for the fat, 22 for the protein, and then 23 for the carbs. And we press submit. Okay, we're supposed to add another thing which will reload the page, but let's go ahead and reload it manually. You go ahead and you see it's now 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's working properly. Let's go ahead and add the last action. So under the Pro Forms, you come under the actions. It has done the update post meta. You now need to reload the page. So let's do page reload, and then we save it. So now everything should be working perfectly. So let's go ahead and change most of these values. So let's say we don't want classic waffles, we want to say version 2. The thumbnail, let's give it a random thumbnail, maybe this one. The name will show up, but it will not show up the image until we submit. Then let's say the rating. This is where we may run into an error, and I will explain the problem pre-version 3.0 and how to fix it. So just say maybe 4.5 or 3.5. Meal type, say you want it to be breakfast and brunch. Let me now do this in order. Say maybe 5, 4, or 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Then I'll just change this to flour. Okay, we can leave the rest. Let's press submit, and we get an error. It tells us that put a valid number between 3 and 4. Okay, let's see if we can solve that problem. Let's go to the rating because I put the rating to be in a step of 0.5. So let's see if we can solve it. Come to the rating, the general, and I'll change the value from numeric to decimal. Maybe that will work. Let's press save. And we'll go back to the front end. Let's refresh it. Okay, and let's try again. So I'll say Classic Waffles version 2. I'll choose the thumbnail to be this one or maybe this one. Then the rating, I'll say maybe 4.5. 5. Meal type, I'll say maybe lunch. The other ones 5, 6, 7, 8. And call this flour. Okay, let's press submit now. We still get the same problem. We need a valid number between 4 and 5. Thankfully, someone found out the problem and he pointed out the solution, which we'll see right now. And the solution involves using a bit of JavaScript, which you can do using the Bricksforge terminal. So let's come here. Make sure under the extensions, you have the Bricksforge panel set to active. Once that is active, if you come to the edit page, you see this symbol of your Bricksforge panel. When you go and open it, it should open up full screen. And all you have to do is create a new event. You give the event a type which is called onPageLoad, DOM content loaded. And the next thing we need to do is the action is to set an attribute. The problem that we are having with the number field is that Bricksforge has forgotten to add a value called step. That's an attribute. And then we need to specify how the step should be. So is it the steps, is it between 1 and 2, or is it going to be jumping in 0.1s? So that's the attribute that's missing, the step and how it should go up. Is it going up in 0.01, in 0.1, in ones? So by default, it's just integers, so 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want it to actually have decimals, you can put 0.1 or 0.5 so that it goes in 0.5 increments. So this is all you need to do. You choose action, should be set attribute. Then the target element, you now choose. In my case, what I did is I'm choosing the data custom ID equal to rating and then input. The way I got this data custom ID equal to rating is first, on my rating field, if you see the custom ID is called rating. If you go to the front end and you go ahead and inspect it, it gets added to the wrapper div, and you will see a data custom ID equal to rating added to the wrapper div. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to affect the input field. We want to add the value called step equal to 0.1 on the input field. So that's why when you come back and then you go to the field, you see I've added step equal to 0.1. We're just adding this attribute into this target element, which is the data custom ID equal to rating space input. When I activate that, because I deactivated it, so when I enable that and then press save, okay, let's close it and then save again. Now when we come to the front end, we close this up and hard reload. We can now come back to this rating field and see if it worked. So inspect, and you should see step equal to 0.1. Now it will work. So we can go ahead and start editing it. So say version 2, change this to maybe this one. Okay. The rating, let's say 4.5. Or let's just say it's a bad rating, 2.5. Meal type, let's say breakfast. Then we'll do this 5, 6, 7, 8. The ingredients, flour. And let's say instead of salt, maybe let me remove the salt. Okay, so just removed one of them and the other things. So let's submit, refresh. Okay, so now we get the title is Classic Waffles version 2. We get our new featured image. Get the rating is now 2.5. The meal type is now breakfast and brunch. The prep time is 5. Cooking time 6, 7, 8. And we have a problem here. The thing I forgot to do here is this is an array. So that is one thing you need to keep in mind. I apologize, I didn't put that in the first place. So ingredients, we need to make it to know that it is an array, not a single value. So array, so colon and then array. Save this, and everything should be good now. So let me come back, refresh, and let's see. So I will remove the salt and then change this to flour. Let's see if it works. Submit. So we have the flour and we no longer have the salt. So if you want to add a new row item and just say this is a test, update it, and you get this is a test. So these are how we can update all of the fields. Like I said, once version 3 is released, I'll do an updated video, but let me know in the comments if this video has been helpful, and I'll really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Please do leave a thumbs up in the video so that it gives me the motivation to know that the video is making an impact on your lives or is helping you out in your web design journey. And if you have any other thing you want me to touch with regards to Bricks and Bricksforge, please let me know in the comments, and I'll add that to the list of videos that I will release in the future. So as always, thanks for watching and keep designing happily. Bye.